Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Daily Highlights. I'm here with Dr. Stephanie Taylor. And today, as the weather's starting to get a little bit better, we don't have any more snow in Canada right now, which is nice, at least in Ottawa. Stephanie, has had to shovel her lawn a little bit before she mowed it. But other than that, it's starting to get a little bit nicer out. So with that in mind, we're going to start talking about, maybe you've been thinking about it a little bit yourself, how the warmer weather, the more sunlight in the air, how that's going to start affecting the spread of COVID-19 and the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So, looking into that, is this guy, how is his cough or sneeze going to affect everybody in this new kind of climate that we're starting to see here as the seasons change. So with that, I'll pass it over to Stephanie to take us off through these.
Good morning, everyone. So yes, let's talk about the influence of ultramagnetic radiation and what we generally think of as light, because the spectrum of of the radiation energy that we perceive is the visible light. So here on this slide, you can see all of the different wavelengths that are emitted from the sun. So to the right, where we have infrared, which is heat, that zone also includes things like radio and TV waves. And then to the left of infrared, we have the visible spectrum. So many of you may remember Roy G. Biv from school, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet as the visible spectrum from long to short. And then going even shorter, we have the ultraviolet wavelengths. So we have UVA, UVB, and UVC. UVC is the shortest and therefore the most penetrating wavelength of those three ultraviolet zones. So if you have ever been into a laboratory and use one of those hoods, when you leave at night, you turn the UV light on. That's UVC. So a lot of people are studying the effects of UVC on this SARS-CoV-2 virus, because UVC was found to be effective in killing the MERS outbreak, which is also a coronavirus. So on the next slide, in the next few slides, we're going to go through some research that's been done by the Homeland Security in the US. And they are looking at the effect of sunlight and humidity and disinfection on surfaces, on surface virus, and they're looking at the effects of sunlight and humidity on aerosols, infectious aerosols. This is still preliminary research, however, it is publicly available. So in the next slide, you can see, so there are different types of surfaces, and this coronavirus is known to live longest on stainless steel. Then intermediate is cardboard and fabric. And then ironically, at least for some of the coronaviruses, the shortest half-life is actually on your hands. And that may be due to the moisture on your hands. But in this study, they were looking at doorknob, metal types, plastic, and then rubber gloves. So in the next slide, these are their preliminary results. So on surfaces, they looked at temperature and relative humidity. And you can see it's really interesting. At comfortable temperatures, so look, it's a little warm for my comfort zone, but 73 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit, that curved graph on the right, you can again see that we have this 40 to 60% relative humidity range, or here it's actually 40 to 70, where you have the least activity in this coronavirus. So again, on the left in the table, you can see at other temperatures, the relationship between temperature and humidity. But again, we are seeing that the humidity decreases the activity. And then on the next slide, this is just showing you how the aerosols were generated. So again, these are aerosols containing SARS-CoV-2. So they generated them with this nozzle. they manage the environment in this controlled chamber. And you can see they call simulated sunlight UVC. So UVC was the wavelength they were talking about, and then humidity and temperature. And then on the next slide, here are their preliminary results. So in the graph, there are two variables that are being tested simultaneously. So it's hard to factor out one from the other, but you can see in a dry environment at 20 degrees centigrade, so we're now in metrics instead of Fahrenheit, but you can see when it's dark and dry, there's persistence of infectivity. And then at 20 degrees still, 45% relative humidity with sunlight, you have less activity. And then full exposure to UVC at 70% relative humidity, you have the least amount of activity. So this is just showing the preliminary results from the Homeland Security research on the interaction of infectivity, UVC, and humidity. So on the next slide, if there is a next slide.
Just quick jumping in there. 20 degrees Celsius is 73 Fahrenheit for anyone curious.
Thank you. I'm conversion impaired. So if anyone's thinking, well, why don't we just get UV lamps and expose ourselves to like the UV that you can buy. The problem with UV light in our skin and eyes is that it actually damages human cells. So any UVC appliances have to be used away from human beings. And in terms of the sunlight per se, mostly UVA and UVB wavelengths penetrate our atmosphere. So there's less UVC in sunlight. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like we can just simply go outside and bask in the sun and hope that all potential SARS-CoV-2 virus would be eradicated. Plus, you can get a sunburn, which isn't good for you. But anyway, so now you have a little bit of a vocabulary around ultraviolet light and research on this COVID-19 virus. So now,
thanks, Stephanie. Yeah. If only we could just go outside and sunbathe and get rid of it. It'd be a little bit easier of a solution here. If you are looking for more information on topics we've discussed through the daily highlights, you can look out to your local Condair agent or rep and contact them and try and get them to book a webinar for anyone in your area. So myself and Dr. Taylor are available. Generally, the webinars consist of about 25 to 30 minutes about why humidify for occupants, 10 to 15-minute introduction to the Condair product catalog, and then we'll have an ongoing Q&A at the end. We do provide certificates for attending, and they can be used to apply for professional development hours as well. And if you are a Condair agent, reach out to your RSM or to myself or Stephanie, and we can start to organize one of these as well. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll see you on Friday.
Great. Have a good couple days.